Last year, out in Colorado with our backpacking group, we came across an avalanche debris field. It was pretty significant. If you've never seen avalanche debris field up close, it is staggering. Trees that you couldn't even put your arms around are snapped right off at the roots. The trees that do not fall along the side of the avalanche are stripped 30 feet in the air. Limbs, bark just stripped right off of them. But what we marveled at was way up at the top of this hill stood a lone tree. Somehow this lone tree came through this avalanche and was not pulled down. Today we're going to see two different men who lived a long, long time ago who in their time They endured what I would call an avalanche of sin. Enoch lived between the fall of mankind and the flood. Noah also will be a part of this. Both men, we're told, walked with God. Both men are mentioned in the early book of Genesis. Both men lived to be really, really old men. And in their lifestyle, when there was a tsunami of evil and wickedness that was coming on, they stood tall. And there's something important because God brings our attention to these two men. And there's one attribute that's accredited to both of them. Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, it says, Enoch walked faithfully with God, and then he was no more. What does that mean? We'll come back to that. Because God took him away. So he walked with God. The exact same thing is said of Noah, by the way. Noah in Genesis 6 was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. He walked faithfully with God. He walked with God. What does that mean to walk with God? Now we're in Hebrews chapter 11. And both these men appear in that whole list of people who live by great faith, men and women who live by great faith. And again, God is calling your attention back to look at this. This is important, God says. Look how they lived their lives. So if you have your Bibles, open it up to chapter 11. I'm going to start reading with verse 5. By faith, by the way, just get used to that phrase, by faith, by faith. It's how every one of these character studies begins. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. You know, whatever confusion there was in Genesis as to him just disappearing, being no more, Hebrews clears it up. He didn't experience death. He's the only one who just was walking with God and then just went walking right into glory with God. He could not be found because God had taken him away, and before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleases God. Now, Enoch in the book of Genesis he's the grandfather of Noah. He appears in this list in Genesis chapter 5 of all these genealogies. And if you've ever read Genesis chapter 5, you'll go, why did I need this list? Oh, this is important. Inside Genesis 5 and all these genealogies, it's God saying, there was this dude and then he died. And then there was this dude and he died. And then there was this dude and he died. And it goes on and on and on until all of a sudden you get to the name Enoch and he doesn't die. Now why did we need Genesis chapter 5? Well, after what just happened in Genesis chapter 3 and 4 is Adam and Eve's fall and the sin that they brought on their family. And there's this moment when God told Adam and Eve, don't ever eat of that tree. And in the day you eat of that tree, you will surely die. What does Satan come along and say? The complete opposite. Did God tell you you'd die? Surely you will not die. Eat all of the fruit you want. And they eat of it. And now here in Genesis 5, guess who's right in the story? God is right. And sure enough, mankind is dying. You and I go through the exact same thing. Enoch is mentioned not because he had these great military victories. He's not mentioned because he was some great king. He's not mentioned in Scripture because God did some great miracles through him. He's not mentioned because he preached some amazing messages back then. He's mentioned for just one thing: he walked with God. Now, what does that mean for you and I? Again, we'll come back to that. He didn't walk ahead of God. He didn't walk behind God. So my son-in-law, Chris, and my daughter, Samantha, when they were first married, before children, they had a dog. It was Chris's dog. Ginger was the dog's name. And when I'd first go up and visit them, I'd walk in the door, and my son-in-law always yelled out and said, "Ginger, Grandpa's here." Whew. I did not want to be a grandpa to a dog. And after a few days, do you know what I'd catch myself saying? "Ginger, you want to go for a walk with Grandpa?" We'd go out, we'd walk, and that, right at first, strong. She'd be pulling in every which direction you could imagine. She'd want to chase every squirrel. She would stop at every post she could stop at. And I would not say we were walking in harmony, but after she got a little tired, you know what would happen? She'd slow down. She would stay a little closer to me. The walk became much more enjoyable for me. The walk certainly had to become more enjoyable for her. There's something about walking with God where you are in step with God. You're not pulling against him. You're not way out ahead of him. You're not way behind him. You're in this relationship that just walks with God. How do you do that? Oh, there's more here. In Hebrews 11, verse 7. By faith, again, by faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, all right, what was not yet seen? The flood. He couldn't see the flood. He knew it was coming. In holy fear, he built an ark to save his family. And by his faith, he condemned the world and became heir to the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. How did Noah condemn the world? In a world that was in an avalanche of sin, Noah lived righteously. Not perfect, but he lived righteously. And so he would have wrecked the whole bell curve for that time. Nobody could have come to God and said, "It can't be done. Nobody can live that way." Well, Noah did. And because of his lifestyle, he condemned the world around him. What was he looking for that couldn't be seen? He was told there's a great flood coming. You better prepare. You and I live by faith when we dream about heaven, something you've never seen. I mean, I can see it in here. I know it's real up here, but have I ever seen heaven? No. And so you and I live by amazing faith when we set our eyes for something we haven't seen. And Noah was told there's a flood coming. The story of Noah is often presented as, it's just a story of a little chubby man and a great big boat. And there's way more to it than that. I always think of the movie Jaws. You remember the original movie Jaws, and Brody, the sheriff? He's at the back of the boat. When he sees Jaws, the shark, up close for the first time, do you remember what he says? We're going to need a bigger boat. When God knew what was coming, he's like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And oh my goodness, you talk about faith. For Noah to build an ark the size of a large ship that far from any large body of water, that has to take some faith. There are those who believe that me even talking about Noah's Ark brings the preacher's credibility under question because, it's a story. It's an ancient story, and, maybe they're just narratives, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, that nothing can be fact. I got to tell you, I think there's a lot of reasons to believe and accept the Noah story. I think there's lots of evidence out there for that. Scores of professional geologists say there was a universal flood. That seems to be solid science. Over 200 cultures believed in an ancient flood, going way, way back and into current times. They have flood stories. New Zealand, Asia, India, Greek, Samaria, Babylonian, the American Indians, Eskimos, Hawaiians, Egyptians, the Aborigines in Australia, the Ecans in America, or in Mexico, all have narratives regarding the flood story. What do they all have in common, by the way? There was a global flood. Mankind is destroyed. Only a few are saved. Animals are in the story. There's a boat with multiple levels. Rain for numerous days. The boat comes to rest in the mountains. What are the differences? Only a few. The size and the shape of the ark might differ a little bit. The duration of the flood differs a little bit. And the name of the man differs a little bit. But outside of that, they all have this agreement. How do you explain that so many cultures out there have a flood narrative in their history outside of one actually happening? Why did God do the flood? Well, people believed back then they could live any way they wanted to live. And they just unleashed this tsunami of wickedness, this avalanche of sin on the world. And God finally said, judgment is coming. He wants to hit the reset button. I'm sorry I even created him, God says himself. And then there's this little moment in looking at the life of the faith of Noah again. Genesis chapter 6. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah wasn't perfect. Noah wasn't sinless. He just found grace. Did he live a righteous life in comparison to those around him? Noah must have shined out pretty bright. But he found grace. God tells Noah to build an ark, and here's the blueprints for its size. God tells Noah exactly how he's going to destroy it by means of a flood. God tells Noah, I'm going to bring all these animals to you. You just have to have it ready. And Noah does everything as God commanded. Look what it says in Genesis chapter 6, verse 22. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. I got to tell you, if I'd have been Noah, I would have done a few things different. There's a few animals I would not have allowed on the ark. Can we just be honest about that? A skunk, why do we need skunks? Rats, snakes. As they start coming, hey, whoa, where are you going? Well, we got an invitation. Oh, no, I don't think so. You're out. And then to put them all in a crowded ark together, you got lions and tigers real close to zebras and gazelles. Whoa. Hey, you two, listen. There better be 2 zebras and 2 gazelles when this trip's over. Now you know what happened to unicorns. Oh, that's gold. I can't believe that's all I got with that. All right. You'll think about it later. You'll giggle again. So why do I believe in the flood account? Not only all the evidence, scientific evidence, all the biblical evidence. The flood is affirmed in 1 Chronicles, Isaiah, Ezekiel, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, Hebrews 11. They all mention Noah and the flood. But for me, the big clincher of all evidences is because Jesus believed in it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Matthew 24, Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, life seemed normal. And they expected nothing before the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the second coming. Jesus anchors the proof of the second coming to the proof of knowing the story. You can think it's questionable for me to believe in the Noah's Ark, but I think I stand on pretty solid ground when Jesus believed in it. Even with all that, that's not the point of Noah's life or Enoch's life. It's not the point of Hebrews 11 pointing to them, saying, look at how they lived their life by faith. When you go back, it was that they walked with God. And so here I am this week, just looking at this walking with God. How does one walk with God? What do I do? Do I give you a list of do's today? Some do's and don'ts? You know what you need to do to walk with God. You need to pray more. You need to read your Bible more. You need to worship more. You need to serve more. You need to share more. Yeah. What do I give you on how to walk with God? And then it bothered me that both Enoch and Noah lived before the law. They had no Bible to read. They seemed to not have any instruction on prayer or worship. It's something that was handed down from generation to generation, but they had no written code. They didn't know what a moral life looked like. They could just look at the world around them, and something about the way culture was going around them, deep inside, they were told, you know what, that is not the way we're going to please God. This idea of two roads seems to be visible back then, even though nobody has said it yet. Jesus will identify it. Oh, there's a wide road that leads to destruction. There's a narrow road that leads to life. Be careful which road you choose. Because on that wide road, by the way, many go down that road. You can watch our society right now. There's many on this downward road to destruction. Many voices saying that's the right road. Only a few say, no, the road is more narrow than you think. I think rather than heaping a lot of instruction on you on how to walk with God, I think this is a journey that you need to be on. I mean, God does not play hide and seek with us. Jeremiah chapter 29. God says, when you come looking for me, you'll find me. Yes, when you get serious about finding me and you want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. Bonnie and I go for walks out in the country. It's something we like to do. Those walks are good. They're good for our relationship. There's a lot of talking and sharing and listening. That's what goes on. There's not hardly a time we go for a walk that's quiet. We're talking about our day. We're talking about our ups. We talk about our downs. We talk about things we're worried about. We're talking about things we're happy with. It's good exercise, but it's so good for our relationship just to go out for these walks together where we're just talking and listening, talking and listening. And I need to learn to listen to her a little more, but I got a wife who knows what it means to walk with God. It's obvious. It's very quiet. It's very subtle. Bonnie doesn't teach a lot of classes here and stuff. But our walk with God is pretty obvious. And recently we were up in Michigan, and we were leaving Michigan. This is just a week or so ago, and as we were leaving Lansing, my wife said, you know, Lloyd and Sue, those are old friends that we used to serve with in ministry. They were the janitors. She said, I hear Lloyd's not doing well. We should stop by. And my spirit was not as tuned in as hers was, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should just hit it. A lot of road construction ahead of us. It's Saturday. I got to be in the pulpit. Maybe we should just, she was like, Ron, I think you should stop. All right, so we went out to Lloyd and Sue's house, and sure enough, Lloyd was not doing well. In fact, he was already in hospice, and he wasn't able to communicate. The kids were all there, grown kids and grandkids, and then poor Sue. And Sue, you know, I prayed at Lloyd's side, Lord, if you're getting ready to take him, move quick, please. Lloyd passed away that evening. But Sue just went on and on. You have no idea how much it means that you stopped by. I can't believe you picked like the perfect timing to come by. How did you know to do that? The Lord told me to stop, Sue. No. It's just because I took a moment, tuned into my wife. And she had it right. Those moments of walking where we're just talking and sharing brings us closer together. So here it is. What does it mean to walk with God this week for you? What's that going to mean? You're going to have to find that. I'm not going to give you a list of do's and don'ts. I know that it will be good for you to walk with God and talk and share what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what makes you angry, what makes you happy. I think somewhere, and then I think there's moments when you just need to listen. What will God say? I have no idea. When will he say it? I don't know. But as we stretch our faith, last week was worship, but this week is walking with God. And if you look for me, God said, you'll find me.